Caveat and disclaimer. I am a nobody. I'm just another bedroom producer, home studio engineer who was challenged by certain people in Nashville to level up my sound. And so that's what I'm doing. And these videos that I'm posting are, to some extent, a progress journal. Whatever I post here is something that has, in my direct experience, improved the quality of my sound and made it more quote unquote professional. And I'm learning as I go. And so this video is a part of that process. I got a comment about a mix engineer named JJP Puig. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Puig, Puig, who has argued that he prefers to mix at a project sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz. So I decided to look into it. And full disclosure, I am using Gemini AI because AI can be a wonderful power tool if you know how to use it. And if you apply due diligence while using it. And with practice, you learn to use it fairly well. But I am using it. So, take that for what it's worth. I'm just going to go through my brief interaction with Gemini in looking into this, and I put it out there for your consideration. So let's dive in. This is my initial prompt to a fresh Gemini chat. JJ Puig has argued that working in 48 kilohertz is unmusical and said that he prefers to mix in 44.1 kilohertz. I've done a web search, but did not find any particular interview wherein he made these claims, much less expounded on them. Can you steelman the idea that 44.1 kilohertz is musically preferable to 48 kilohertz, with specific reasons, technical or otherwise, for why that might be the case? Here's Gemini's answer. And Gemini is better than Grok, in my opinion. But I digress. The claim that 44.1K is more musical than 48 is a perspective famously associated with Jack Joseph Puig, who has often discussed his preference for the lower sample rate in masterclasses and interviews. While modern digital theory often favors 48 for its slightly higher Nyquist frequency and compatibility with video, the Steelman case for 44.1 relies on how digital to analog conversion affects the feel and vibe of a record. Part 1. The filter slope and quote-unquote vibe. To prevent aliasing, digital systems use anti-aliasing filters to cut off frequencies above the Nyquist limit. At 44.1, the gap between the audible limit, 20K, and the Nyquist limit, 22.05K, is very narrow. The argument. This requires a steeper brick wall filter. JJP and other proponents argue that these steeper filters introduce subtle phase shifts or ringing in the high frequencies that, while technically a distortion, result in a specific crunch or compactness that defines the sound of classic digital records. Musicianship. 48 can sometimes sound too open or clinical. The slight softening or phase smearing at 44.1K can act like a subtle form of quote-unquote glue, making the high end feel more integrated into the mix rather than detached. Part 2, transient energy and weight. A common subjective critique of 48 is that it sounds thinner than 44.1. Technical reason. Every sample rate change affects how transients are reconstructed. Some engineers feel that 44.1 preserves a specific punch in the low mids and low end. Because 48 captures more high-frequency data, the overall energy balance of the file can shift subtly upward, making the bass feel less weighty by comparison. The quote-unquote pocket. For genres like rock and hip-hop, where the thump of the kick and the weight of the snare are paramount, The perceived density of 44.1K is often preferred over the airiness of 48K. Part 3. Harmonic aliasing as color. In a perfect world, we want zero aliasing. However, in musical production, perfection is rarely the goal. The argument. Working at 44.1K causes harmonic artifacts from plugins like saturators or compressors to fold back into the audible range sooner than they would at 48K. The result, this can create a harmonic density that sounds like attitude or record sound. JJP often speaks about making records sound like records, not like life. If 44.1 adds a layer of digital grit that feels familiar to our ears after decades of CD quality music, it becomes a musical choice. 4. Mathematical symmetry. There is a legacy argument regarding the math of the music. The argument, since 44.1K was the standard for decades due to CD and early digital recorders, many of the most iconic digital processors and converters were optimized specifically for this rate. The result, some hardware units actually sound their best at 44.1 because their internal clocking and filter designs were tuned to that specific frequency during development. Here we have a summary table. You can pause and read that. Would you like me to look for specific JJP master blah, 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 blah? Okay, and then my next query. According to some of this reasoning, a certain amount of aliasing distortion is not only inevitable, but in some cases desirable. Now, steelman the case that aliasing distortion itself is unmusical and something to be minimized as much as possible. Answer. While some engineers embrace the grit of digital artifacts, a strong case can be made that aliasing distortion is the ultimate enemy of musicality. In this view, aliasing is not vintage character. It is a fundamental technical failure that degrades the emotional impact of a mix. To steelman the argument for minimizing aliasing at all costs, we must look at how it differs from musical distortion and how it affects the listener's subconscious experience. Part 1. The inharmonic nature of aliasing. Musicality is largely defined by harmonic relationships. When you distort an analog signal, like a tube or tape, the new frequencies generated are integer multiples of the original note. These are musically related and reinforce the pitch. The argument, aliasing is inharmonic. When a high-frequency component hits the Nyquist limit and folds back, it doesn't land on a musical interval. Instead, it creates frequencies that are mathematically unrelated to the key of the song. The result? This manifests as a metallic or glassy ringing. It's a form of dissonance that the human brain can't resolve, leading to ear fatigue. To a purist, this isn't vibe. It's noise that pollutes the melodic integrity of the music. Aside, that is my position. Continuing. 2. Loss of depth and 3D imaging, also my position. The sense of space and depth in a recording, the feeling that a singer is standing 5 feet behind the speakers, depends on the preservation of micro details and phase relationships in the high frequencies. The argument, aliasing distortion acts as a low-level floor of garbage. It masks the delicate, low-level information like reverb tails and room reflections. The result, when aliasing is high, the mix feels 2D and plasticky. By eliminating aliasing, through 96K or high oversampling, the blackness between notes is restored, allowing the soundstage to feel deep and immersive. 3. The unpredictable cumulative effect. A single plug-in aliasing might be inaudible. However, a modern mix might have 50 to 100 tracks, each with multiple stages of processing. The argument, aliasing is cumulative and interactive. The artifacts from one plugin become the input for the next, creating intermodulation distortion. The result, by the time the signal reaches the master bus, the high end has become a smear of digital artifacts. This makes it incredibly difficult to get a mix to sound loud without it sounding shattered. Minimizing aliasing at every step ensures the top end remains silky rather than sizzly. 4. Transients in modern high-end. In modern pop and electronic music, we demand extreme clarity and snap in the high frequencies. The argument, if your sample rate or processing allows for aliasing, those snaps transients are often accompanied by a tiny burst of inharmonic noise. The result, this makes the high-frequency content feel detached or fake. To achieve the ultra-polished, expensive sound of modern aliased records, you need the absolute purity that only comes from a high-resolution, alias-free signal path. And then we have our chart here, and you can pause and read that. Okay, and then that concluded my initial poke into this topic. I'm going to pause here real quick while I gather my notes. Okay, I'm going to read a follow-up interaction with Gemini and leave it at that. So I went to another Gemini chat and I said, JJ Puig has argued that mixes produced in 44.1K are more musical, i.e. vibey, than mixes produced at 48. Looking into this claim, I discovered that the reasoning partly rests on how old DACs were optimized for 44.1K. But JJ Puig's mix room is a veritable museum of vintage gear that is also appointed with the best of what modern tech has to offer. He is able to mix and match old and new outboard gear, and his approach is always out of the box. Bedroom producers of today are primarily in the box with ADCs and DACs optimized for higher sample rates. Puig's reasonings also rests on acceptance of a certain amount of aliasing distortion as being in itself part of an established musical aesthetic shaped by the limitations of nascent digital audio technology. So his preference for 44.1K is also a matter of taste. Having a less open, less naturalistic soundstage is part of the record sound that people have come to expect when they encounter a commercial recording. Would this be a fair assessment and summary of the issue? And Gemini says, yes, it is. Here's why your assessment is spot on. 1, the euphoric error. JJP is effectively arguing for controlled imperfection. In the early digital era, the aliasing and steep filters required for 44.1K created a slight phase smear and a rounding of the transients. For certain genres, this makes the audio feel more glued or compact. When JJP says musical, he often means it sounds like the hit records of the 90s and 2000s. That's not my bag. 2, the hardware versus software gap. You hit on the most critical point, the out-of-the-box factor. JJP's world. When he stays at 44.1, his vintage outboard gear, Fairchild's Pultex, provides the harmonic weight. The digital side is just a storage medium. The ITB reality. A home engineer working in the box at 44.1 doesn't have a $30,000 transformer balance compressor to smooth out the digital tiz. When a plug-in aliases in 44.1K session, it isn't vintage mojo, it's just unpleasant inharmonic distortion. 3, the naturalistic soundstage. You're right that 48K and higher feels more open and naturalistic. This is because the anti-aliasing filters are moved further away from the audible range, allowing for a more linear phase response in the high frequencies. 44.1. Oh, I'm shaving it. The sound of a record. It's slightly claustrophobic, dense, and pushed. 48/96, the sound of reality is transparent, wide, and airy. For a bedroom producer trying to emulate JJP's 44.1K vibe without his $2 million signal chain is a trap. It's like trying to get the film look by using a dirty lens instead of good lighting. Look, what it comes down to is it's a matter of taste and objectives. That's what it comes down to. I am producing mixing in genres that make me lean towards the higher sample rate, more open sound stage. I want more of a pristine canvas. And then I will introduce the imperfections to taste. Thank you very much. And I'm in the box, and I'm in a bedroom. And I'm not JJ Puig rubbing shoulders with bajillionaires with everything at my fingertips. So, but I want to be fair and balanced and, present the caveat. So here it is. Vinyl Bear from humble, homely Vinyl Bear studio in lovely scenic Paju City, South Korea. Take it for what it's worth. Over and out.